18 years later, the month of July 2010, for the first time after 18 years, I went to my hometown from where I was banished, like all my fellow citizens. The afternoon summer heat created discomfort and even greater nervousness. The whole time of my journey, I was strangely disturbed, recalling the terrible scenes of the year of 1992, of fear, anger, and uncertainty. Driving along narrow roads that were dangerously winding, we were approaching the border, crossing between Croatia and Bosnia. And then I began to feel a kind of restlessness, because I knew that I was entering a smaller entity, or better said, a dark vilayet of Bosnia and Herzegovina. We passed through the settlements between cities of Bosanska Kostajnica and Bosanski Novi, and I observed with my eyes everything that could be seen, because I was eager for everything. I was eager for Bosnia. When we came upon the village of Poljavnice, I started to shake like a rod leaf, looking closely at the faces we were driving past, to see if I recognized any of the evildoers for whom, unfortunately, the hand of justice has not yet arrived. They are all from that settlement called Poljavnice. People who killed my brother and my parents and raped my mother, the ones who killed everything in me. Shortly after that, we arrived at the house of my mother-in-law. She brought us coffee, the real one from Bosnia. So we drank it somehow sweetly, probably from the long journey and fatigue. I suddenly jumped up and said, "I'm going to Urje to visit our house." I went to my doorstep, where I was born and where I spent the best part of my life, there where I experienced and felt all the glamour of my youth, which I am very proud of, not thinking for a single moment that in due time I could experience the worst and be exiled from my home. All the way there on Urje, I couldn't recognize any detail, because everything had been changed and built, except for mine, my brother's, and my father's houses, which were devastated, burned, and robbed. I stood petrified, and shivers went through my body, some kind of chills that took over my whole body. I was afraid, and the heat struck my head so that I neither heard nor saw anything around me, while tears flowed down my face, one after another. I looked around for my parents and my brother. I wanted to feel their warmth, to hear their voice, but there was nothing except the feeling that everything was falling apart and disappearing. It was just wishful thinking. The images were lining up and passed through my head so quickly, indiscriminately, that in those few minutes I went through that hell of 1992, where I was powerless to do anything to protect my family and myself from the evildoers, attacking us, not knowing anything but to harass, rob, burn, kill, cause pain and suffering to others. I passed through the yards between our houses where everything was abundant. Grass and moss had grown, where one could feel some kind of sadness, anxiety, and unusual silence that accelerated the rhythm of my heart. I thought that my heart would burst from the ghostly image before my eyes. At that moment, I wanted to go as far as possible from that scheme and not believe that I saw it all, that it was all just a dream and not reality. I didn't want to spoil the image from my childhood and my youth, but later, slowly leaving my courtyard, I felt that my heart was beating stronger and creating in it an even greater desire to return again and to stay longer, spend time with my thoughts and memories, to review everything carefully so that I would miss anything. For the first 2 or 3 days, I almost didn't eat anything because I was so mentally stressed that I didn't even feel hunger, and my eyes burned and were red from crying. After a few days, when I calmed down a bit, I went back to my house to examine it a little more. The roof of my parents' house was taken off. The windows, doors, floors were torn out and carried away, and the walls collapsed because the ravages of time had taken their toll. In the middle of the yard, where my mother used to sew quilts when I was a child, a tree grew and bent all the way above the height of the house. Everything was destroyed. I entered the basement, where there was a lot of junk, and from where I saw the sky. I wanted to dig through that rubbish to see if I could find an old picture from my childhood. But my brother's warning flashed through my head not to go and run around and come across a hand grenade or a mine that they had deliberately left to kill me. Racked with pain, I sat down in a corner of the basement and stayed there for a while, staring at that sad environment before my eyes, and in my mind the images of my brother who was taken away and killed before my eyes, downstream by the river Una in Poljavnice. Where are all these war criminals from? I thought about our beautiful childhood, in which I was closer to him, my brother, than to any of the other siblings. I thought about my parents, who suffered so much. They were starved, beaten. My mother was raped in front of my father, forced to undress in front of that rowdy gang. So much was in my head that I thought I would pass out from the torment and pain that suffocated my chest. I thought about it. I wanted to stay a little longer, but on my way, I stopped in the courtyard of a few of our friends to see them, to talk with them a bit, simply to make my day better and see people dear to me. They were surprised when they saw me in the courtyard of their house, and in some disbelief they attempted to manage and invite me to the house for coffee. which of course I did not refuse. The story is the same again. What they endured, living conditions, health problems, and unemployment, interest in other fellow citizens, where they are, how they coped. These are the topics that were discussed during our meetings. After drinking the coffee, I departed and I left them on the threshold of the house, looking after me down the road with a sour smile on their faces, probably wondering if we will ever see each other again. Life is like that, and he goes on, very cruel for some and easy for others. It, life, has no feelings for anyone. Yes, life is like that. Going on a short walk, I had the desire to visit all of them, to take a peek everywhere, and to simply think about every place where I used to walk, pass by, because those are beautiful memories, dearest to me. Walking slowly, I arrived home in Prekosanje, where my worried wife was waiting for me, asking me where I have been up to now. With a frown and tired of everything I saw, I waved my hand, and with that I told her everything. It was beautiful and sunny weather. The next day, I decided to go to Prijedor with my nephew to visit my parents' graves. For the first time after 17 years since my father's death, 15 years since my mother's death, I walked slowly along the weedy path, looking at the surrounding mountains to see if I could see my parents' names anywhere. Suddenly, the nephew said, "Uncle, here are the tombstones. Here they are." I was startled, as if from a dream, and hurried to see them as soon as possible, as if they would run away from me somewhere. 2 graves, next to each other, the same, just like when they were alive, always together, next to each other, as if they would never part. That is where my loved ones lie and will remain forever. My parents, Rukia and Muharrem, 2 old heroes, whom there is so much left unsaid. I approached quietly, fearing that I would disturb them in their eternal sleep, crouched between the tombstones and wrapped my arms around them, staring at the ground where they rest, spreading my hands in prayer. I started reciting the Al-Fatiha, and tears rolled down my face that I couldn't stop. In front of my eyes were 2 pictures, 2 old and weak elderly folks who could not resist the terror of the inhuman creatures who attacked them, knowing nothing else. In my ears, words of my mother rang from our last phone conversation, right before the end of the war. She said to me, "My dear son Sutko, I'm afraid we'll never see each other again." As if she had a premonition. That's how it was. From the hardships of the war and the sufferings she went through and the constant worry, she had a heart attack. On the same day, her condition worsened. She gave up her soul and gave herself to the God whom she loved so much, in whom she believed so much, and whom she worshipped so much, day after day. I would gladly say to them, my parents, dear mother and father, I have come to see you, to hug you tightly, and to never let you go from my embrace. I'm so longing for your image, your parental love. I miss you so much, because I love you immensely. Unfortunately, I know that you won't hear me. That's why I'm asking dear Allah that the angels protect, cares, and watch over you. And I will pray to remember you not only today, but every new day. I gently caressed the gravestones, touched the ground where they rest, got up and started walking slowly, not having the strength to say anything, because so much pressure was building up in my head and chest. I thought I was going to explode. I would prefer to go somewhere in the forest, to be alone where no one will see or hear me cry, to wail like an animal in order to get rid of the pain and bitterness that has accumulated in me since 1992. But I can't. My dear God, what are the human destinies?